Welcome to the Power Factor Show. Episode 115.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Power Factor. Today we're going to talk about shotgun cleaning and shotgun maintenance, some of the things that you need to be aware of. We kind of each have our own approach to doing cleaning, when we do cleaning. As you guys all know from the past, I'm really anal about cleaning shotguns or cleaning any firearms for that matter. You, not so much.
Well, kinda.
Yeah.
Because I'll basically clean my gun just about every time I go out to some level. And that's, I think, what we're going to talk about is over time, as you see the crud build up in your gun, you know, how deep you want to get into it.
Right. And I think in terms of shotgun cleaning, and especially with over-unders, is that generally speaking, they may stay fairly clean.
They do.
The only thing that really gets dirty is the barrels. And typically what gets dirty in the barrels is either just powder or plastic fouling.
And the chokes.
And the chokes, right. Yeah. And that's actually a really good point, because there's a lot of people who don't maintain their chokes and then go to remove them or attempt to remove them later and find out they don't come out so well.
No.
Yeah, and then you've got to soak them and do stuff like that, which we'll get into later on. But just to tie up some loose ends here, Rick had posed a trivia question back during the Lefty episode of, I think the question was, what percentage of, well, he didn't say the U.S. population, and that would be an interesting question.
I think it said general population.
Yeah, general, but I wonder if it actually varies based on demographics. It shouldn't, but I wonder if it does, but regardless. Of the population is left-handed. And it was kind of funny because he said, I have a number in my mind. It's like, great, Rick, so we got to match that number that you have in your mind? That's going to be really, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10.
It's like doing a survey and getting the result you want.
Right. We know how that works.
Yes.
So at any rate, the number that he was willing to accept was between 10 and 20%. And the winner is David Bingham. Bingman, sorry. Yeah.
That's one.
It's just a G.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Bingman, David Bingman, and had the right answer. Actually, there was quite a few answers. There was a lot of people responded to that. So it was good input on that one. So at any rate, David, congratulations. You got the right answer. Maybe you're also left-handed. We never did hear about that part. So at any rate, so moving forward, I think we'll probably start talking really about kind of our, I think, ideas of needed maintenance. And we want to kind of cover today over-unders and also pumps, semi-autos, and the other half of the game.
Yeah, to some degree.
Right.
More so on the over and unders, but the things we're going to talk about, the cleaning, what you want to look for, and some lubing is pretty much the same on any of the shotguns. I've got an 870 that we can take apart. Anybody that has an 870 probably already knows how to take it apart. I don't have a semi-auto. I do know that the Beretta and the Benelli guns come apart real easy, real quick, and clean up pretty easy too.
Right. And the thing obviously with gas operated autos is you have the carbon fouling issue really is your main problem that you're going to run into. The Benellis, which are recoil operated, you don't have that issue.
Not as much, yeah.
But with the auto loaders, you really need to be pretty aggressive about making sure that they are clean and stay clean, because the carbon fouling is probably your worst enemy from that standpoint. So at any rate. Okay, well, let's get to it.
So what I want to do is kind of go through the stages of cleaning a shotgun, and I don't think that's the right term. There's different levels of maintenance that you want to do on a gun over time. For example, every time I shoot this, I bring it back, I'll take the barrels off of it, pull a bore snake through the bores, I'll wipe all of the grease out of it, I'll clean the breech face really good. I'll take the chokes out of it. This doesn't have any chokes in it now. Before I leave the range, especially in weather like we've been having, where it's been cooler but damper. And the barrels do get warm, and a few times I have taken the chokes out and seen drops of moisture on the tubes themselves between the barrel and the choke. So I'll do that every time I shoot, I don't know how many rounds, 1,500 rounds, something like that. Then I'll do that same thing, but I'll take the extractors out of the gun and clean that. And depending on how much plastic is in the barrels, I'll clean those really good too. And then once a year, you probably want to take the stock off of it and clean the inside of the action out and lube that up. So
yeah, a lot of guys do that as their sort of their annual or winter maintenance of pulling the stock off the gun and actually getting into the action and cleaning it out and making sure that it's all lubed up and greased and whatnot for the next year. That's kind of a good practice to get into.
So I think the thing to do now would be to start doing some of this stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say in terms of maintenance, I know you like to run a barrel snake through the gun.
Yes.
After shooting, I take the little bit more aggressive approach of that. Every time I shoot, I scrub it out, solvent, everything, all the way. So what you are doing, it sounds like every, say, roughly 1,500 or 1,000 or so rounds, I'm doing every time. Generally, every time I shoot. Now, the only exception to that is if I'm shooting on a Sunday and I know I'm going to shoot on a Wednesday,
you'll let it go.
I'll let it go.
Yeah.
But if it's going to be over a week or if it's indeterminate when I'm going to be shooting again, I will clean.
Okay.
But, yeah.
I've done quite a bit with the barrels on this as far as cleaning and polishing.
Right.
When I first got it, it liked to suck up plastic really well, and I've gone through and polished them with some 4/0 steel wool and a JB Bore compound and cleaned it with that.
I was going to say JB Well, but it wouldn't be that.
No. And then JB also makes a polish that I followed up with, and it smoothed them up really good, and it doesn't hang on to much plastic now. So we have pictures of how dirty the barrels are right now, and we'll take more pictures right after just pulling the snake through it so you can see how much that will take out of it and how much plastic is really in them. So we might as well start moving towards the working area and taking this thing apart. Okay, so we're going to pretend that I just got back from the range. It's about 4 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. I've gone through my empties, thrown the bad holes away.
What happened between 2 and 4? Because usually you and I end
I usually forget about that. Like I said, the chokes came out of it when I was at the range. So now I'm here and I'm going to clean it. And I'm going to pretend that this is like just one of my normal cleanings for after a shoot. So the forearm comes off, the barrels come off, and the receiver. You can't see real well right now, but we have taken pictures of this for you of how much crud is on the bottom of the barrels and on the face of the barrel. And what I'm going to do is start wiping that off, just so I don't get dirty grease all over the rest of this place. That's just the cursory wipe. And now I'm going to do my instant barrel clean that Steve just doesn't think this has any value at all, do you? So I've seen a lot of people grab these and then they'll try to pull the thing through. Me, not so much. I stand on it and pull it up and through. And it's not really that difficult.
How much crud does that actually remove? I mean, I guess we'll get a good look here from the barrels.
So
I guess I would say
that's the bottom barrel, but you look through both of them now, and then I'll do the top.
So one of the things I've always been sort of skeptical about.
At a light.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at the bottom. You have not done the top, correct?
How could you tell?
Yeah, all right. That's not bad. That's pretty damn clean.
Yeah. There's a couple of streaks just at the forcing cone of plastic in it, but it's not bad at all.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I've always been kind of a skeptic of the bore snakes, just thinking that they can't possibly clean as well as a scrub brush, but I might take that statement back after seeing how clean that is.
Well, and Sue will do this at the range before the gun cools down.
Which is a good idea, because while it's warm, it's easier to get plastic fouling out than when it gets cold and sort of gets baked on.
So one more through there, just because I made a mistake. And no, that's the top. That's good.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that you pull your chokes, it sounds like, every time you shoot.
Yeah, Brian got me doing that.
Yeah, I don't. That's a good point, because, I mean, To be honest, the only times that I'm more often than not pulling my chokes is when I'm switching between skeet shooting and sporting clay shooting.
Yeah.
Which is, every other week.
See, I would leave them in too. And when Brian got his first Guarini, he was talking with the Guarini boys.
Yeah.
And they recommend that, pull the chokes out of it when you're done for the day.
Yeah, yeah.
And like you said before, the last thing you want to do
it certainly prevents that situation where you go to change your chokes for whatever reason and all of a sudden discover you can't pull them.
Yeah.
And the solution for that, what they recommend is taking the end of your barrel and leaving it overnight in solvent.
Standing up in the bucket
in the bucket,
WD-40 or something.
Some penetrating oil, typically, and just
let it soak in.
Right. Yeah. And usually the problem there is rust, and then what you need to do is take a bronze brush, and more often than not, it's usually using a drill or whatever, but literally just scrubbing out the rust blooms.
We'll get to the drill in a little bit here.
Yeah, you have a special technique for board cleaning.
Well, I don't know if it's special or not, but so that's basically, the routine on the inside of the barrels. What I do next is move stuff around. Is really wipe all of the old grease off of this thing. I'll get Q-tips.
Now, do you actually use clean patches for this?
Yes, I do.
Really? Because I actually have an old T-shirt that has many, many miles of grease probably on it. And I use that for just the first pass scrub down of getting all the grease out.
So you thought these were for other things. But I try to get as much grease out of it as I can. I'll even try to get under the ejectors, because you don't want, stuff's going to build up in there, but I'll try and get as much out as I can. And the other place is where the locking lug goes in, because on the Beretta locking system there's a bolt that comes out of the breech face with 2 tapered pins on it that go into these recesses, and there's a lot of pressure on them, so I want to keep that as clean as I can.
Those are probably the major wear points on the Beretta Action, is those 2 conical
so
lugs.
I've wiped all of this off, and for just the everyday cleaning, that's not bad right there. And before I put it back together, I will take some brake free, put it on the barrels, and then wipe all the excess off. So the next thing I'm going to do is get into the receiver itself. And this, as you can see from the picture that we took, is kind of filthy. And this gun now has 10,700 and some rounds through it.
Wow.
I, for the first time in my life, started to keep track of how much I've shot anything, and it's kind of interesting to me, because I don't think that I've shot that much out of it. And if I ever sell this thing, and I don't know if I ever will, at least I can have an accurate round count to tell.
So 10,000 rounds represents how many years and or months? Let's call it months from your standpoint.
I got it in August of 11,
okay,
so
about
maybe 18 months or so.
And for what it's worth, it's funny because there's a thread going on one of the shotgun forums right now about the number of rounds people have on their guns.
I saw that.
And just generally speaking, a number of rounds, and there are numbers there being posted. Well, I saw one that was 600,000. I don't know if I'd believe that or not. I don't know how many rebuilds that may represent.
I saw the one that was had 200 on it, and I think it had been rebuilt once. And
a lot of these things, basically, they're 100,000 rounds, and you might need your first rebuild.
Yeah.
And you think about 100,000 rounds, how much time does that represent? Unless you're doing a lot of shooting, but even in your case, if you're shooting 10,000 rounds in 18 months, 10,000 rounds is going to be quite a few years of use.
So that's pretty much wiped out. Sometimes I will really clean the breech face if I feel like it.
Right.
But not today. And then in the forearm itself, This is where the iron goes against the receiver, and it's got the levers in it for the cocking rods and the ejectors.
Right.
And it can get pretty dirty in here too. So again, I'm just wiping stuff out.
Should probably also mention in terms of also when we were just speaking about the longevity of firearms and how long they can go before rebuilds, is that the more attentive you are to cleaning and making sure the gun is clean between shootings, the longer it's going to last.
It will.
Yeah, I mean, because the problem is more often than not is grit or things of that nature that get into the grease or the oil that you're using, which just acts as an abrasive, which causes wear.
So that's basically my between shoots cleaning. At this point, I would normally grease stuff up again, put some oil on it in a couple of places and put it back together, and clean the chokes, or at least wipe the outside of them off.
Right.
And then go shoot it some more.
Right.
So rather than doing that, we're going to part 2 of shotgun maintenance now. Now we're pretending that we're moving on to that 2 or 3 times a year, that after we go through the basic cleaning of the gun, there's a bunch of crud with the ejectors, and there's a bunch of plastic in the bores that hasn't come out, which is pulling the snake through it, or even doing a brush and some patches through it.
Or in my case, every week.
Every week. Yeah. So the first thing I want to do is take the ejectors out.
Which I don't do every week, I'll admit that.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
And every over and under I've had like 3 different designs. They all come out differently. These, you depress them, twist them, and then they'll come out of the channels.
I will give Beretta credit for probably creating one of the easiest ways to remove an extractor. There's no tools required. It's beautiful in terms of its design.
On my Caesar Guarini, you had to depress the ejector all the way back in, and then there's a little disc that was like a lock that you had to use.
Good luck with that.
A scribe or something to get in to pop that out, and then it would let the ejector come out. The Satoris have a screw holding them in,
right,
and they come out pretty easy too if you have the right screwdriver.
But that screw also has been known to break off too. Yeah,
and it's a tiny one.
Yes, it is.
So I'm using patches because the edges on these things are pretty sharp, even though I've gone through and I've stoned just about every one of them.
It's funny you should mention that, because last Saturday, I was planning on going shooting at Granite Falls, but it was raining and I wasn't able to. But I slipped my thumb somehow, and I couldn't figure out how I slipped my thumb during the day. And I greased my shotgun up that morning thinking that I might be going out. And I realized now that I think I slipped my thumb on actually the ejector when I was greasing it. So
come on out of there. Okay, I'm getting a bigger rag.
See, now what I usually do is do this. Push, lift, pull. Don't tell John I just did
shut up.
That.
Push and flip?
There it is.
I know.
Yep.
Smart. See, now that's starting to get rust on it.
Oh yeah, it is. Look at that. That's interesting.
That's Granite Falls, baby, right there.
Yeah, when you saw the episode up at Granite Falls, you probably saw all the nice northwest, liquid sunshine that we were dealing with.
You mean like that?
Just like that.
Oh, look. So I'm glad
we're
taking this apart.
I was going to say, do you pay attention to which one you just pulled from which barrel? I think the answer there is no.
Doesn't matter to me. As far as the plungers and the springs go, no.
Well, the Beretta engineers might have an issue with that.
Tell me what the difference is in them.
Who knows?
I'll give you the magic eyes. You check them out.
I know which one pulled, I'm really good at shell games too, but I know which one right now pulled out of which barrel until you switch them all up and then it's all gone.
Okay.
I still know.
No, you don't. So, what I do with these is I'll get some. Ooh, that is crummy. Some solvent and a toothbrush and work them over and clean them as best I can. So I'll do that now. Takes just a minute. I'm using Hoppies instead of Ed's Red because it doesn't penetrate my hands so much, and then they won't be tingling about midnight from all of the reaction to the acetone. Or I could put some gloves on, which I rarely do.
I don't either. I hate to admit it, but I'm going to die of acetone poisoning.
This really is some Hoppies, And I just, put enough in the pan, and I'll put this back so I don't spill it now. I'll spill it later.
This has been mentioned before. Somebody ought to make aftershave out of the smell of hoppies, because they'd sell a lot of it.
Because these were fairly dirty, and I should have suspected the rust issue from shooting in the rain at Granite Falls, 3-4 weeks ago.
And that's a good point, is that that's another good reason that whenever, and this doesn't just apply to shotguns, but handguns also, is that whenever I would shoot a match or anything in the rain, it would, immediately when I got home, it was torn down and, cleaned, to make sure that I didn't run into any issues like this about rust or anything like that. And I remember when we were shooting up there, that's one of the first things I did when I got home, is to clean the gun.
Ooh, this doesn't look good. It looks like it's cleaning good, but I'm sorry to have subjected it to this. So that's about all there is to that. I'm going to let them sit for a while, and then I'll wipe them off before I put it back together. Okay. So now we're going to move on to cleaning the barrels big time. So now we're set up to clean the inside of the barrels the way I do it, about 2 to 3 times a year. And what I'm using is some Ed's Red that is a home brew that I mixed up. And Steve, please tell our viewers all about it.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you mentioned Ed's Red, because you and I had a conversation on Sunday, and I thought I was the only person who was using Ed's Red, and turns out I'm not. I was really rather surprised to find out that you use it also.
And it is red.
It is red. Ed's Red is a homebrew solvent that was really created by a guy
named
Ed Harris, or C.E. Harris, who is a gun writer. And I discovered it probably about 1990 or so, and this is going to take you into the Wayback Machine. For you computer geeks out there, something called the Usenet forums. This is well before really the internet, and before Al Gore claimed he created it. But there was a forum way back in the day called rec.guns, and I had found out about this stuff called Ed's Red on rec.guns. And Ed's Red is a homebrew gun cleaning solution that I use on literally everything, be it Glocks, be it AR-15s, shotguns. And basically it is 4 equal parts of the following. ATF solution, automatic transmission fluid, I should say.
Yep.
Mineral spirits, acetone, and
kerosene.
Deodorized kerosene.
It doesn't have to be deodorized.
It doesn't have to be deodorized.
It's so much nicer to use.
That's true, yeah. And then there are some variations on that of using lanolin for those. They said that if you're storing your gun for about a year or whatever, that you can go ahead and use the lanolin on it to prevent against corrosion. But since I'm shooting it all the time, I don't bother dealing with that.
I think the lanolin kind of turns it into a CLP at that point, too, providing a little bit more, lubrication at the end.
And the ATF in itself works great as a lubricant. In fact, a lot of people, from what I understand, will sometimes, in cases, forego actually oiling their guns, because if they're using Ed's Red, the ATF part of that will go ahead and provide the lubrication for that. But I've been using Ed's Red for a long time. It does not attack plastics. The one thing that you need to be really...
If it has the acetone, it will.
Yeah, that's true. Well, actually, I use it on my Glock. Of course, whether Glocks are made out of plastic or not, we don't really know. But yeah. The one exception to using Ed's Red is that my approach is anything that has wood attached to it, I will not use Ed's Red on, because the acetone could or may attack the finish. So what I use there is ballistol cut with mineral spirits, 50-50. Our producer hates the smell of ballistol. In fact, a lot of people hate the smell of ballistol, but ballistol's been around for possibly a decade or so. It goes way back. And I use that for cleaning the receiver and cleaning the forend, either of my shotgun, or you saw the episode that we did on the obscure guns. I use that on anything with case hardening, like my single action army, or in the case of my 1892 lever action rifle with wood, again, I'll use the ballistol on that. But anything that is not sensitive to acetone, as in AR-15s or Glocks or my STI or whatever, I'll use Ed's Red on it, and it works great. So if you're not familiar with Ed's Red, go out and Google it and find out about it. It's extremely cheap to make. You know, you go out and buy acetone, mineral spirits, ATF, and kerosene, and
you know that'll make a gallon or more, depending on what quantities you bought, and it'll cost you about the same as a couple of small bottles of you name it solvents.
Right, and it'll last you literally forever. I mean, a long time. So
yeah, it's just like Mobil 1 is a good oil too that goes forever.
So when we get to the discussion here at the end of this about oiling and grease,
So what I've been doing is getting my extended drill rod out. I have a phosphor bronze brush in it. It's a 12 gauge brush, and I'm going to wrap it with 4/0 steel wool. And
I've heard about this technique, but I've never seen it.
Well, here you go. And sometimes I'll let the solvent sit a little bit longer than what that has.
So do you do this every time for this, what we're going to call phase 2 of your cleaning? I mean, you are literally taking out the...
Yes.
Okay.
Well, maybe not every time. Sometimes I'll pop the extractors out of it and not do this, depending on what the inside of the barrel.
The barrels, yeah. I mean, you are going at it with steel wool.
I will generally wait until there's a lot of plastic buildup in it, and this doesn't have much in it now.
No, it has, absolutely.
And wait until it's going to be worthwhile and worth my time to do it. And we've got this just about ready to go, but it would be nice if we had this right here, because you got to have...
For all you fans of power tools, this is for you.
Now, I've done this with my electric drill, but like you say, power-wise, it's really good in the chamber, and then you hear the RPM drop. It's like, you know, a AA fuel dragster. It's coming off really good, and then
John,
it pulls down, and then it gets to the end.
You need to get your 350 Chevy attached to this thing and really run it.
That'd be fine, yeah.
Or your top fuel, yeah, that'd be good.
So this gets to be real interesting, of dipping it again into our favorite elixir, and then starting it in the barrel, and then wiping the excess Ed's Red off my hands. See, this is why I only do it a couple times a year.
Yeah.
Because it's a real pain, but it works really good.
Well, I'll probably die of Ed's Red poisoning from the fact that, you know, I'm doing it every week, but there are worse ways to die, so. Imagine the people in Britain.
I sure am a long ways from that barrel.
The people in Britain right now who are watching this are probably about ready to cringe.
You're not doing that, and the guys at Beretta.
Yeah.
And I've got the tape on it to know when to stop sticking it in.
That's good.
Because if I push the brush out of the other end, then it gets interesting on taking it apart to pull it back out.
So you are going to go into your choke threads on this?
Right up to them, maybe into them.
Okay.
I mean, the barrel's chrome lined.
Right.
It's really harder than this.
Exactly. People are going to say, wow, you're just destroying your barrel. The barrel is chrome lined in these things. Chrome is a lot harder than triple-aught steel wool.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot harder than Tornado.
So it's pretty fine.
4-aught size of triple, 4-aught steel wool. Yeah, so you're not doing any damage to your barrels doing this.
So this is the chamber. We'll go down just a little bit. That's getting into the forcing cone.
Yep. No, it's interesting because I can actually feel the lower barrel slightly warm up.
I think I got to the end. Ooh, and I'm pulling stuff back. Okay, so we're dripping our way to the top barrel because it's so unwieldy here. There. Ooh, some of it even went back in.
That takes talent.
I don't know. Can you push the plug in, please?
Certainly.
Thank you. There, that's good. Stand back, Steve.
This brings up images of going to the dentist's office and getting a root canal.
Yeah. There, I didn't get you too bad. So that's pretty much the power tool portion. Now we're going to start pushing patches through it.
Right.
And what I like to use for that is this rubber ringed jag.
I have not seen one of those. That's interesting.
And it works pretty good on chokes up to about modified, and then it gets real tight. So if you're going to work on these,
But
you got to
again,
have a lot of
we're
patches.
chokeless at this point.
Yep.
Yep.
So this is where it's going to get real messy. See, that's why I put my bottle on that. That's okay, I got somebody that cleans up.
Yeah.
Me.
We'll get the production crew to come in here and clean this up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it works, pretty good.
So it's interesting that looking at your method for cleaning and my method for cleaning, I can see a little bit how they're different. Obviously, John takes the power tool approach for doing things. I use something called a tornado brush, and a tornado brush.
Ooh, that was ugly.
I was exposed to that probably back in about 1972 or so when I first started shooting a shotgun, and my dad taught me how to clean. And a tornado brush does a really good job in terms of shotguns of ripping out the plastic fouling and whatnot. When I clean my bores, what I will do is actually go through the last thing I'll do is I'll start out with, which is completely different than what you're doing, but I'll start out with a wet patch, run that down the barrel, soak it, get it nice and wet, let that set for
I don't think a patch carries enough solvent with it.
Well, I soak the living crap out of my patch, so I
Yeah.
mean, enough of it's squirting oil out as I ram it down the barrel, but at any rate. So I'll wet patch it, get it nice and wet, clean it with that, let it soak for a few minutes while I clean the receiver and clean the forend
Starting to look pretty good.
with ballistol. I'll run a bronze bore brush down it, scrub that out using that, and then I will finally run the tornado brush down it, and we'll show you what a tornado brush here looks like in a bit. And then I will let it sit overnight, basically for any of the residual oil to drain out of the barrel. And at that point, I'll reassemble the shotgun and put it back in my safe. So I don't go to this extent that you're doing here of actually dry patching the barrel to make sure that it's clean.
It's clean and it pushes all that junk out.
Right, right. Yeah.
God, I can see to the end.
And we should probably get a picture of that.
Oh, we will.
Yeah.
Just wiping out the area where the case head.
And that's a good point,
rests
that
in
now
there.
the extractors are off, you can really get in there and clean.
Get it real clean.
Yeah, yeah. And
the grooves
clean
where
the
they've
groove
been
and clean
running.
the channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Clean all of this stuff out.
And you don't actually need to, with the Ed's red stuff, you don't need to let the bores sit that long. The acetone doesn't really dissolve the plastic, but it gets
It
kind of like
loosens it.
under the plastic, so
Yeah.
to speak, and frees it up so that when you do run some sort of a brush or whatever down the barrels, that it will remove it.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't melt plastic.
That's looking more better now. It's a little sloppy still.
Oh, that looks nice. Yeah, it looks really good.
So So just get all
And
this
I think
excess
it's
stuff
clear
off
by
of here.
looking at your barrels is that the more that your barrels are polished, and I imagine to a certain degree yours barrels are getting polished by virtue of running the 4/0 steel wool down them, and also
Oh, yeah.
the JB compound.
I just did that once.
Yeah, and again, you use the drill method for the JB compound, correct? Yeah.
These mops here, the one
Right.
with the pink,
Right.
and the other one's kind of brownish.
Effectively, the more polished your barrel is, the less likely it is to grab onto plastic fouling and whatnot. It makes it even easier. Oh boy.
You got some break free?
Oh, break. Okay, I
want some break free?
thought you had some special solution going on over
Yeah,
there.
break free. This is the gunsmith size, break free.
Yeah. So in my case, I would probably been using Ed's Red for this step of just basically cleaning everything.
But I like the oil residue that it leaves.
Yeah.
And if there's any hint of starting to rust or anything on it,
Right.
it takes it off just right now.
But I think that's also the advantage of, or the part of Ed's Red, the ATF, which acts as the,
The lube.
exactly.
And ATF's a pretty good solvent in itself,
is.
too. It's got
Yeah.
super detergent qualities.
Right. And I've heard of people actually using also in a pinch of, was it Marvel's Mystery Oil? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is just about to the point where I'll take the excess off of it.
Well, I was saying in terms of smell, that smells good.
You're that way, huh?
Yeah.
So
I'm
now
a fine connoisseur of different gun solvents and cleaning solutions.
it's
So,
the aromas of the shop.
Yes.
So I'm going to go ahead and put the ejectors back in it. But I think first
that can always be fun in my experience of getting them to, taking them out
they'll
is
get
easy.
almost in, and then you push it and it snaps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Getting them out is easy. Getting them in is more difficult.
Well, I'm just getting the remains of the solvent out of the tracks, which seem to be dirty too.
So it's interesting the rust that you're seeing from the shooting at Granite Falls when we were wet.
I wonder what's the inside of Sue's gun's looking like right now. Okay, which spring was it?
The one on the left.
Oh, okay. Okay, I was just curious. Lucky guess it was. So I oil these up. Are you going low?
Yeah.
So I want to put oil in the channel itself that the ejector rides in, and I'll put some oil in the hole where the spring and the spring guide go. And then I'm going to hurt my fingers, I just know it. Look at that.
Just like that.
Like I'd done it before.
You gotta love those Beretta engineers.
Was it good for you? And that better stay in, look.
Wow.
See, something's not right. There. It's just not all the way in.
It's in.
No, needs to tilt a little bit more. See, it's
Well, I think you're
not-
pushing it actually out of the track.
That's better. Okay. So now I'm done sweating over that.
Continued in part 2.